if we hold something against someone in unforgiveness, it stops them receiving God's forgiveness. That's the power of forgiveness. And we hold them to it, and it affects them. It affects us worse if we don't forgive, but it affects them. So when you forgive your generational line for something, for introducing something in your generational line, it enables them to respond to the good news. If you don't, it binds them. And that's the whole thing of, you know, the power of agreement. If you forgive those who are on earth, which is again was the power to forgive or retain sin. In John's gospel, when Jesus was talking to his disciples, it says you have the power to forgive sin. Now, it didn't mean, in a sense, you could forgive their sin and they don't have any that needs dealing with in a sense for themselves, but you can deal with by choosing to forgive them for what they've done, open them up to forgiveness from God. And if you hold their, you know, your generational line, that's why when I went back into my generational lines and went into the fire to deal with my generational lines, I had to deal with the issues that were within me to give me the power to preach to them, which meant I did have to forgive them. I had to release them, and I had to deal with that generational issue in me. One of the big ones was divorce in my generational lines. My father had been divorced, his father had been divorced, and I found there was all sorts of divorce going back generations in all four of my generational lines. I had to choose to forgive and release them for what they had done and bless them. And then when I went to preach to them who were there, they felt so guilty and condemned. And I forgave them and offered them a freedom from divorce and because of the stigma of it. I mean, years ago, I mean, generations ago, divorce was seen as a real stigma. And a lot of them had suffered as a result of that and felt totally unworthy because of that stigma. So I had to forgive them and release them and bless them and tell them that I no longer held anything against them in my generational line. Now, they hugely responded to the good news by their thousands when I preached that message. If I hadn't have dealt with it in me and chosen to forgive and release them in my generations, I would have had no authority and power to go and preach to them, which is what Jesus said to me. The level of authority you have to preach good news is proportional to the level that you've dealt with generational issues in your own life, which is what I did. So I know of people who've done court cases on behalf of generational issues, and those generational people have turned up in the court to thank them because they've already responded to the good news without even them having to go and preach to it. And they've done that and seen people, and they were like, whoa, what are you doing here? Totally freaked them out because they didn't understand the dynamic of the power of their forgiveness in the court.